بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Continuing in our reading of the Kitaab At-Tawheed of Shaykh Al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhaab rahimahullah, alongside the explanation of the scholar Al-Allama Ibn al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, القول المفيد في شرح كتاب التوحيد. We stopped in the chapter in relation to seeking the refuge with other than Allah. And seeking refuge with other than Allah is from the series of examples of shirk, like we mentioned last week on the chapter in regards to taking a vow with other than Allah. And we concluded from what Shaykh Al-Islam rahimahullah mentions the evidences that it is shirk, and that someone should only seek or make out vows with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in this chapter, continuing from the different ibadat that are supposed to be given solely to Allah, he will mention now that seeking refuge with Allah is ibadah, and that seeking refuge with other than Allah is shirk. So this is what we're benefiting from this chapter. So the chapter is in relation to seeking refuge with other than Allah is from shirk. I think in the English translation part of the title is missing. It says with other than Allah is from shirk. Perhaps that part is missing, but in reference to seeking refuge with other than Allah is shirk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. And verily there were men among mankind who took shelter with the masculine or the males among the jinn, but the jinn increased to mankind in sin and disbelief. Surah Al-Jinn, ayah 6. So here Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he comments on this verse Shaykh Al-Islam mentions. He's saying from shirk in the chapter, min here, this is a type of particle, and what it's showing here is that it is from shirk. And so in general sense, because if refuge is sought in a person for things that he's capable of, such is permissible, just like isti'ana. So here Shaykh Al-Islam says from shirk is also to seek refuge with other than Allah. Not that in all cases it is seeking refuge with other than Allah, in all cases is not shirk. It means there is some situation where someone can seek refuge with other than Allah, and there are situations where someone is not allowed to seek refuge with other than Allah. So Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen mentions here the tafsir, very briefly, is that seeking refuge with a person or the creation in things that they are capable of doing, then this is permissible, just like isti'ana, seeking assistance other than Allah with the creation in that which they are able to do is also allowed. And isti'ana is the next chapter, seeking assistance with other than Allah or with Allah. So here we learn a benefit that you can divide the issue of seeking refuge into two types, right? One in which you're seeking refuge with the creation in that which they are capable of doing, which Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen concludes that is permissible. And this is also opinion of many of the ulama, the Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh and others, when they explain this subject. And the second one, which is the real intent of the chapter, is that seeking refuge with other than Allah in that which only Allah can do, that is shirk akbar. It's considered from the major shirk. For only it should be done for Allah. And to show that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says here that in this verse that verily the men among the human beings, they sought refuge with them, some of the men of the jinn. And what was the result? فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. It increased them in sin and disbelief. So the benefit we take from that is, this ayah is showing that the type of seeking refuge in that which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do is type of shirk. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions that they were in sin and transgression. And we benefit from that, so we need to pay attention to that angle. Now, just to mention a bit more, because Shaykh will also get into it. He says here that, after mentioning the verse, this is in relation to Surah Al-Jinn, أنه استمع نفر من الجن, that a group of the jinn, they heard the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam when he and the Sahaba were praying salah together at a particular place, but it was Nakhla. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reported this story that they heard him sallallahu alayhi wasallam reciting the Quran, and they became believers, and they went back to their people as mundirin, as warners. So Shaykh mentions here that it was revealed unto me, means this verse, it's listening. So the conclusion of the verse here is that is revealed to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam in relation to the party of jinn, of the males who heard this. And he's saying from among mankind, means in the verse, so rijal means men. And Shaykh saying here, the men here, mentioned are indefinite form. So rijalun min ins are mentioned in indefinite form. And what's important here is that you hear that they sought refuge with other than Allah. And here the Shaykh saying here is that what is intended here is they sought resort. They sought resort. And al-iyadh, which means refuge. And refuge should only be sought with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we benefit here, what is the definition then of isti'adha? What does it mean when someone says you are seeking refuge with Allah or seeking refuge with something? It means talab al-iyadh. Al-isti'adha, it's talab al-iyadh, which means to seek al-iyadh, which is refuge or shelter, al-malja'a. So Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh mentioned that the meaning of the word isti'adha is talab al-iyadh. You're seeking al-iyadh, which means help or shelter or refuge. And so here they did this with the jinn. فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا, it increased them in sin and transgression. Ibn Kathir, he mentions in his tafsir, Ibn Qatada, he said رَهَقًا فَزَادُوهُمْ إِثْمًا, it increased them in sin. So that's what it means. فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا إِثْمًا, increased them in sin. So Qatada and others, they mentioned this in the explanation of the verse. So al-isti'adha talab al-iyadh, and here is seeking refuge. So it should be done from Allah. That is the origin. Allah says, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. And for many of us who cover the book like Thalathatul Usul, we know. The Shaykh mentions the example of isti'adha. He mentions قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ or قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. So the asl is that we are supposed to seek refuge in Allah. قُلْ أَعُوذُ, say I seek refuge in Allah, the Lord of mankind. I seek refuge in Allah, the Lord of the dawn or daybreak. So this is the origin. However, as we mentioned, there are some times where you can do it with the creation with certain conditions. And so here, Shaykh al-Uthaymeen is going to discuss this, the issue of the verse, but we want to mention this to make it clear. So Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh, in his sharh of Kitab At-Tawheed, it's called al-Tawheed, bisharh Kitab At-Tawheed. He mentions then, after discussing the issue, that we can divide al-isti'adha into two types. Al-isti'adha, zahir and batin, apparent and hidden, or external and hidden, or internal. Al-isti'adha is of two types. We have the zahir, the apparent, the external, and there's the zahir, and then the batin, which is the internal or the hidden. Now, why is this important? Because when we talk about the issue, can we make isti'adha with the creation? It returns back to these two. So what he says then is that as for the apparent, then this is something that a human being can do when he seeks refuge with another human being or another creation, and that which they're capable of doing. So before we get into the exception, the origin is that you should be making isti'adha, seeking refuge in Allah, apparently and hiddenly, only with Allah. That's the true isti'adha. The true isti'adha is when you're seeking refuge in Allah apparently and hiddenly. Apparently and hidden. What does apparent means? Apparently you're saying you're turning to Allah. Apparently you're seeking refuge in Allah. In hiddenly or in the eternally, your heart is tranquil, trusting, completely putting your refuge in Allah. That's what isti'adha is. Apparent and the hidden. But when you're allowed to seek refuge in the creation, is only zahir and apparent. For example, someone to help you in time of danger, or with another creation regarding something that they're capable of doing, to rescue you in something. Apparently, you're allowed to, because they're capable of doing that. Batin, only for Allah. So in your heart, you're turning your heart towards Allah. But apparently, you're saying, someone will protect me from such and such thing that's coming, or harming you. So apparently, you're allowed to do isti'adha from apparent form with the creation in that which they're capable of doing. For example, something harmful is going to bother you or going to afflict you, and some human being, someone you say, ask someone's help to block you between that person, that thing, or between you and that other harm. But in your heart, you're seeking refuge only with Allah, because only Allah can truly aid you. But then when it becomes shirk, is when you're asking the creation that which they cannot help you with. So, for example, here to seek refuge, as they did with the jinn, and that which only Allah can do, save you from the punishment of the hellfire, to save you from the other things only Allah can do. That can only be asked from Allah. Likewise, someone to put his direction in his heart other than Allah, when seeking the apparent means, or seeking the apparent refuge, also not allowed. For reality, isti'adha belongs to Allah. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. So what we conclude from this is that we're allowed to. Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh and here, Ibn Uthaymeen also mentioned. But he mentioned earlier. Both of them conclude it is permissible to seek refuge with the creation in that which they're capable of doing, apparently, but your heart must be fully having tranquility and trust and direction to Allah. And when you combine both, when something afflicts you or something there, you turn to Allah only. You're seeking refuge in your heart internally with Allah. That's the truth, isti'adha. That's the reality of isti'adha. And so we see then, isti'adha should be as an ibadah for Allah. But with this, you can do it apparently with the creation in that which they're capable of doing, but your heart must always be directed towards Allah. So you must be always reminded of that there's a issue of the qalb involved. Clear, making sense so far? Right? So this is how they divide isti'adha. Shaykh then continues Ibn Uthaymeen in relation to the jinn. And he says here that they sought refuge. Means they sought refuge against what they dread, thinking that they can protect them but only increase them in rahaqan, fear and panic. The Arabs during the Jahiliyyah period of ignorance, whenever they stopped by a valley, they would call out, "Oh, I seek refuge with the Lord of this valley from the foolish amongst its occupants." So this is what they used to do. So rahaqan, one way that we're understanding is fear and scare. To increase them more in fear, more in scare and panic. And so the fear and panic is of the heart, while the weakness is in the body. So this verse proves that seeking refuge with the jinn is forbidden, because it does not benefit the seeker. It rather increases him rahaqan, so he is punished with the opposite of that he's intended. And this is clearly apparent. So the letter wow in the pronoun for the jinn and the ha pronoun for the mankind. So rahaqan, dalil, you cannot seek refuge with the jinn, because it will only increase your souls in fear and panic and sin along with that. It is also said that it is mankind that increases the jinn rahaqan, but the first opinion is correct. Some have understood the opposite, that mankind increased them in arrogance and rebellion, but it's actually the more correct, that because they did this, they've increased in panic and fear and sin. And Shaykh says here, رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ, which proves that they are males from the jinn, and they are females. So when it comes to our aqeedah, we talk about the issue of the ghaib and iman. We believe in the jinn. There's male and there's female. One of the proofs is this, رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. It's one of the proofs to show that there are male jinn and there are female jinn. And vice versa, the males of mankind may have intercourse or intimate relations with females amongst the jinn. And some of the ulama fiqh, jurisprudence, have mentioned different opinion regarding the obligation of taking ghusl in regards to this. Allahu musta'an. Right? So we're not even going to go into detail on that. Right? But the issue is some of the discussion about that. Is it the possibility of man having intimate relation with the jinn? And this, yes, ulama mentioned this, it can occur. Right? It can occur, and the same way that it occurs would be man and female of the male and female of the human beings. The Shaykh said there's even mentioned different opinion regarding obligation to ghusl from such a relationship. But the point is, we learned there's jinn and male and female. And in the dua, the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim and others, the hadith of Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يدخل الخلاء, when he used to enter the washroom, he used to say, اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الخبث والخبائث. One of the interpretations of ulama mentioned the khubith khaba'ith, male and female jinn. Right? So another way of understanding that, this to prove there is a male and female jinn, is this dua we often read when we go into the washroom. Khubathi wal khaba'ith. And so we see here from our benefit, from our side benefit, that there are male and female jinns based on the Kitab and the Sunnah. Rijalun min al-jinni. Shaykh continues, right, and so we finish it. He discusses the issue, is ghusl needed? As regards for the ritual bath, the scholars say if she had said she has a jinn that has intimate relations with her, as a man would, then it's obligatory to perform ghusl. But that a male, mankind has intercourse with a female jinn, and such has been reported, although I have not come across that from the sayings of people of knowledge, and tales has been told of that, Allah knows best. Even nowadays people they claim this to be occurring, Allahu A'lam, it's not something far-fetched. But in terms of the ghusl, Allahu A'lam. Then Shaykh said, we're obliged to believe in their existence, that they are given legal obligations as well, and that there are pious and non-pious jinn among them, and there are Muslims and non-Muslims among them, and males and females. Right, so this is a general belief regarding the Iman and the jinn. Of course, there are books that ulama have written in regards to the detailed belief regarding the jinn, and their whereabouts, and their forms, and like this. But the general belief is this: they are legally responsible. They have to follow the Sharia, and they can go to paradise and they can go to hell. And likewise, right, amongst the Muslim and non-Muslim, as Allah mentions a lot of this in Surah Jinn, كُنَّا طَرَائِقَ قِدَدًا, Allah says. كُنَّا طَرَائِقَ, we are in طَرَائِقَ قِدَدًا. Many different sects and groups. وَأَنَّ مِنَّا مُسْلِمُونَ مِنَّا صَالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا قَاسِطُونَ. Some of us are Muslimin, some of us are قاسطون. So like this, they're divided. Upright, upright, Muslim, non-Muslim. Sunni, bid'i. They have that as well. Those who call Sunnah, those who call bid'ah. The point of reference is, the Shaykh said, the Shahid here, taking this is dispraise in regards to seeking refuge from the jinn. And the one who seeks refuge with a thing has no doubt connected hope and relied upon it, and that is shirk. And so from this we're learning that this is from shirk, but only this should be sought from Allah. But we made a detailed point that if it's sought from the creation, in that which they are capable of doing, with the heart being directed, tranquil with Allah, then it's allowed. And that's why it's not allowed. And so we benefit here that we should be seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Continuing, Shaykh al-Islam brings the hadith of Khawla bint Hakim radiyallahu ta'ala anha, who said, I heard the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whoever stops over a place and says, أعوذ بكلمات الله تامات من شر ما خلق, I seek refuge with Allah's perfect words from the evil of what He created, nothing shall harm him until he leaves that place. Rawahu Muslim. So this hadith is a proof to support that seeking refuge should be sought from Allah. Shaykh says, whoever stops at a place. So the beginning of the hadith begins, من نزل, whoever stops at a منزلا, like a place. It says it includes the one who stops by way of settling or merely stopping over, since the expression is of indefinite form. So it includes someone settling down there or just stopping over while passing by. I seek refuge, meaning I seek refuge and protection. In what? The perfect words of Allah, kalimat. From the plurals, the word fewness, owing to it being a sound feminine plural, the plurals of fewness refer to plurals, to Arabic benefit there. But the point is, the kalimat here is the word of Allah, the words of Allah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ الْبَحْرُ بِدَادًا لِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّهِ لَنَفِدَ الْبَحْرُ قَبْلَ أَن تَنْفَدَ كَلِمَاتُ رَبِّي وَلَوْ جِئْنَا بِمِثْلِهِ مَدَدًا. Say if the sea were ink of for the kalimat, the words of my Lord, surely the sea would be exhausted before the kalimat, the words of my Lord would be finished, even if we brought another sea like it for its aid. Surah Kahf, ayah 109. And so Allah also says, evidently in the Quran, وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٌ وَالْبَحْرُ يَمُدُّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ سَبْعَةُ أَبْحُرٍ مَا نَفِدَتْ كَلِمَاتُ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And if all the trees on the earth were pens, and the sea were ink with 7 seas behind it, added to supply, the kalimat of Allah will not be exhausted. Surah Luqman, ayah 27. So the word kalimat here refers to the kalimat that are related to the creation and legislation. And so the Shaykh says here that the word tammat is used to describe Allah's words. Here, so the kalimat described with tammat means the word is perfect in 2 ways: truthfulness in informing, and justice in ruling. So the kalimat of Allah are perfect. Number 1, in relation to truthfulness in what is important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always tells the truth. وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا. Who is more truthful in the speech than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We also have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَاللَّهُ يَقُولُ الْحَقِّ. Allah, He speaks the truth, وَيَهْدِي السَّبِيلَ. Allah, He speaks the truth and He guides us from His path. So in the second one is justice in its rulings. So Shaykh says, to prove the ayah at this point, Allah says, وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدَلًا. This verse covers both. And the word of your Lord has been perfect in truth and justice. لَا مُبَدِّلَ لَكَلِمَاتِهِ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. None can change His kalimat, and He is as-Sami' al-Alim. So the shahid, صِدْقًا وَعَدَلًا. Truthfulness, justice. So it's important we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech. And we know from our lessons in other books that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks. He has the attribute of speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is described with speech. And a side benefit we should take from this, that many of the Ahlul Ilm, they use this as proof that the Quran is not created. So one of the adillah to show the Quran is not created. And this is something that we mentioned in one of the lessons for Al-Aqidah, Num'atul I'tiqad, otherwise, that the Quran is the speech of Allah. Al-Quran kalamullah laysa bi makhluq. It's not a creation. It's not a creation. And how do we prove that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described with speech. As if we ascribe the speech to Him already as Himself. Allah says here, it tells the kalimatullah. Allah also mentions Surah Al, we mentioned, if any of them disbelievers, they come to seek refuge, then grant them refuge hatta yasma'a kalam Allah, till they get to hear the speech of Allah. But the proof from this hadith, and it's a good hadith to memorize, from two angles. Number one, from dua. If I remember correctly, this could be used, as Shaykh said, for those passing by, as well as those who are settling. So for example, someone may stop over a particular place overnight while traveling, on this particular hotel or this particular place, you read this dua there. So that, why? Because then the hadith says, nothing will harm him until he gets up from that place. So it's not just that you have to settle there, but we be passing by places. So it's good to memorize this dua for the benefit of reading it. And how many times maybe you might spend night over some place, so you get protection of Allah. The second benefit we learn, the Quran is not created. And why? Because the Mu'tazilah's refutation of them and those who said the Quran was created, because he says here, I seek refuge. A'udhu bi kalimatillahi tamma. Are we allowed to seek refuge in the creation? They just said no. So how can you seek refuge in the speech of Allah unless it must be not created? You see that istidlal? The point of reference there? How can we seek refuge in something that is created? It's not allowed. So it must be then the Quran is not created. This is the Imam Ahmed's understanding. And the Salaf, they took from that. So this is how Imam Ahmed and others use to prove the Quran was not created, but this kind of delil. It shows you again the importance of understanding the hadith and the benefits, because sometimes you may read about hadith but we don't see that. And we see something else and we see this, subhanAllah, look at that fahm. So this is a side benefit we should take note of. It's the proof the Quran is not created. Al-Quran kalamullah minhu bada wa ilayhi ya'ud. From him it came and to him it shall return. And this is a shahid, because we're not allowed to seek refuge other than Allah. So kalimatillahi tamma means Allah's speech is not created. And it's a hadith Muslim, so it's authentic. So Shaykh continues saying here, from evil what He has created. So benefit here that from the evil that He has created, since Allah created all things, the good and the evil. But evil is not attributed to Him since He created for particular wisdom, and for that it turns to be good. A benefit here now. For some people they have this kind of misconception. That's not about confusion. They may say, well, how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create it when evil is no good? Or they may even argue that the fact that evil exists means that there is no creator. The secret is not ignorance. Because Allah created it. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. You don't have to go beyond that and say Allah says seek refuge in Allah, the Lord of David, from the evil that He created. But the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, evil and good, is known from the Quran and Sunnah. But in relation to this, the Shaykh says here, but we don't attribute evil to Him since He created for particular wisdom. And for that, it turns to be good. So evil from our end, Allah is good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this evil and created the good, and there behind it is hikmah. In Allah alim al-hakim. So for example, sickness, a worldly process is considered evil. Somebody gets sick or terminal illness, we consider it evil. But then the benefit is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this and tested with it, so He may forgive them their sins, expiate their sins, elevate their degrees. Perhaps someone may pass away with certain sickness, even die, for example, with stomach illness, and die as shaheed. So we know that it comes in the narration authentically. The one who dies with something of the stomach issue, stomach illness, becomes shaheed. How then? So we see benefit there, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does everything with wisdom. So even though He created it, we don't tend to attribute to Him like this. We don't, and that's why we find in the hadith, وَشَرْ لَيْسَ إِلَيْكَ. And evil is not towards you. We don't ascribe Allah like this. Oh, Allah, the creator of evil. It's not the adab of Allah. Even though we believe Allah created the good and the evil. So Shaykh then continues by saying, thus we say evil is not from Allah's deeds. They are from the creations. The creation is the one who is doing what we consider evil. Even though Allah created evil, but for Allah, the deeds are considered good. For Allah does everything, wisdom and knowledge. So as such, the article ma here, ma khalaq, is a connective and no other, meaning from evil what He has created. So evil is not from the deeds of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says here that the deeds of the creation to do the evil. This is because if you consider a verb, and the Shaykh gets into some of the Arabic points to prove the point that he just mentioned now. Now he said, it is not the all. He said, it is not all that Allah created that bears evil, but you should seek protection against it. It's evil if it has since been of the creation of three kinds. So now he's dividing evil into three, or three categories. So there are some things which are absolute evil. Absolute evil. So such as the fire, Iblis, with respect to their essence. However, with respect to the wisdom for which Allah created them, they are good. So there's some things which are considered absolute evil, like the fire, hellfire, or fire, so Iblis. And so in the respect to their essence. However, with respect to Allah, they're not considered evil; they're considered good. Then there's absolute good, such as Jannah. So the first one, Jahannam, Iblis. The second one, Jannah. The Anbiya, the prophets, the messengers, the angels. They're absolute good. They're the best of the creation. And then there was that which is good and evil. It means mankind and the jinn and the animals. So some of them are good, some are bad. Some of them can be good, some of them can be bad. So you should only seek refuge against the evil of that which has evil. So that's what he's doing here. Shaykh showing us, when do we seek the refuge? That which has evil. So there's some things that the absolute evil, like the hellfire. So we seek refuge from the hellfire, right? We seek refuge from the hellfire because it's absolute evil. Or from shaitan. Ta'awudu billah. Seek refuge in Allah min shaitan. And in the absolute good, it's like Jannah, Prophet, Messenger, the angels, we don't seek refuge in them, from them. Well, they have good, they're absolute good. The other one, between the good and evil. So you should seek refuge in Allah against the evil of that which has evil. So that which has evil. Now we benefit then. And some things, they have evil, that's when we seek refuge in Allah. And then there comes a question, what then has evil? We have to have some knowledge of it then. Right? So because some things we may not think have evil, like the dunya. And we know some hadith on refuge in the dunya, fitna to dunya, from the trials of dunya. So why is it? Because there's evil in it. So it's a benefit there. Maybe someone may say, well, I don't know that. Maybe yes, but if we know something has evil, then we seek refuge in it. So we need to have knowledge also of what is good and what is evil. Otherwise, we don't know when to seek refuge. And then he says you should only seek refuge. Okay, he's saying here, nothing shall harm him. Means, shay'un is indefinite form and context of negation, which we learned many times before, which means the evil of every evil bearer among the jinn, mankind, others, both manifest and hidden, will not harm him until he leaves that place, because the source of this information cannot err. But if it does not so happen, it is owing to preventive element and not inaccuracy in the supplication. Nor the incorrectness of the information. It means that if it does happen that somebody says a dua, that evil occurs to them, it's not the dua is not true. It doesn't mean this hadith is not authentic. What it means is that there's a preventative that prevented that. It means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will that preventative to prevent him from that. But Allah also will maybe that in this situation something should affect them. So we should understand from that. If someone takes the hadith, apparently so well then if someone reads it, he shouldn't always be protected. No, that could be preventative at times to prevent him from that. Allah knows. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills whatever He wills. And this is likewise the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed from the approved means of the Sharia. If we do it and expect the effects and it's not felt, that is not because of a fault in the means, but owing to a preventative element. For instance, reciting Surah Al-Fatiha to cure the sick. Some of the people would read it and sick would be cured. That is not owing to failure of the means, but such is due to a preventative between the means and the effect. Similar to that is the meaning of Allah's names, saying Allah's name before having intimate relations. It protects the prospective child from evil of shaitan. But the meaning would be done, mentioning would be done. And sometimes, and yet shaitan harms the child due to inhibiting an element inferring between the effect and the means. So despite the fact that these are established, it can occur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. That's why we always mention, when something happens that we don't intend it, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees that which He wills. And that which He wills, the decree shall occur. So we need to understand that. Imam Qurtubi, rahimahullah, said, I experienced this. One day I forgot and I entered my house and did not say that, and a scorpion stung me. As I mentioned here from the statement of Qurtubi, I experienced this. One day I forgot to enter. I forgot to enter my house. I did not say that. And a scorpion stung me. The point of reference to the hadith is I seek refuge with Allah's perfect words. And the author said in the chapter, heading, seeking refuge with other than Allah. With other than Allah. Which means that, seeking refuge with other than Allah. Then, here, the hadith, the refuge is sought with the kalimat of not Allah. Why? He said, I will respond by saying Allah's words from His attributes. So now Shaykh is going to explain the hadith. It was mentioned that saying this, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات, is proof that Allah's speech in the Quran is not created. Why? Because Shaykh said that the words of Allah are His attributes. And thus the scholars deduce from the hadith that the words of Allah are from His attributes and not created, since seeking refuge with the creation is not permissible in a matter such as this. If the kalimat, Allah's words, were created, the Prophet ﷺ would not have directed us to do this. So the author's statement seeking refuge with other than Allah would entail, also you can add, with other than Allah or with His attribute. So we can add to that the attribute. Okay, so you can seek refuge in Allah with His attribute if you're intending by that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It reads in the hadith, I seek refuge with Allah's might and His power from the evil of what I have feel and dread. Hadith Uthman bin al-As and Hadith Muslim. So here, the refuge was sought with Allah's might and His power, and not with Allah. And the might and power from Allah's attributes are not created. For the same reason, it is allowed to swear with Allah, or by Allah, and with His attributes since they are not created. So now we get into an issue. What is the ruling on seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes? And so here, Shaykh is saying here that since Allah's attributes are not created, then it's permissible to seek refuge in Allah with it if someone's intending Allah. And the ulama, they discuss it, and they make a differentiation between the two, and we should mention that differentiation so we don't get confused. So one is it, is that someone he makes dua through Allah's attributes directly to the attribute, not intending Allah, then this is not permissible. In fact, Shaykh al-Islam himself, rahimahullah, mentioned that supplicating with Allah's attributes and His words means independently is to consider disbelief according to the consensus. And this is in his Kitab al-Bakri, page 231. So what is here the point the Shaykh saying? Because you can't say, for example, Ya Kalam Allah. You're saying, for example, Ya Kalam Allah, Ya Ilm Allah. For example, like that. Making dua to it. So making dua to it, right, like this, then this is not the way. Because, again, they're not independent of Allah. These attributes are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Shaykh Uthaymin mentioned another part of the Fatwa besides this book. In reality, seeking refuge in Allah with His attributes. Using, for example, His attributes by making tawassul to Allah through the attributes. So, Ya Rahmatullah. Right? Or I seek refuge in the mercy of Allah. But the point is, you're intending Allah, you're seeking refuge in Allah by means of His attribute, then this is allowed. And this is what he's concluding here. And that's why you find in the dua, in the ahadith of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, examples of that. Like the hadith Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, and I think it's also hadith Ali, in Sahih Muslim, the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to make dua in the sujood, أعوذ برضاك من سخطك. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in your pleasure from your wrath. So birdak. So here, by your pleasure. So Shaykh, that's an example. I think he says where here Rasulullah is seeking refuge in Allah's pleasure, attribute of Allah, but it's by way of intending Allah and drawing near to Allah. So this is fine. But if it's just independent, like for example, by the knowledge of Allah, or just the knowledge, but not intending Allah, then this is not allowed. So here we make a slight difference. And when you're doing this, you're intending Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His attribute, because you're intending Allah and Allah's attributes are not created. The same way that we're allowed to swear by Allah, take an oath by Allah, and also an oath by Allah's attributes, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attributes are not created, they are describing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hope it becomes a little clear there. Right. So then he continues by saying then, if someone were to swear, for example, by the signs, like signage or sign language, if he intends the signs of the Sharia, the signs means the alamat, or the signs of the religion. If he intends the signs of the Sharia, then it's allowed. But if he intends the signs of nature, then it's not allowed. And concerning seeking refuge with the created creature, means the creation, then it needs some detailed elaboration. if the creature or creation is capable of doing this particular action, if he's not capable of doing this action, then it's considered shirk. Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, it is not permissible to seek refuge with the creation in the view of many of the leading scholars. And this is not in the general sense. What they meant is rather about what no one is capable of doing except for Allah. So as we said earlier, you are allowed to seek refuge with the creation in that which they are capable of doing, and this is a apparent form of seeking refuge. But your heart must be directed towards Allah only. So we mentioned Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen says this, and also Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh and others when they explain this chapter. And from that is seeking refuge with the occupants of the grave. Some people they do this, they seek refuge with the occupants of the grave. Why is this not allowed? He said they can't benefit, they can't harm. And so seeking refuge with them is major shirk, whether such is done near their graves or far away. However, to seek refuge with the creation about that which they are capable of, this is permissible. This is author of the book Taysir al-Aziz al-Hamid, which is one of the biggest explanations and the earliest explanations of Kitab At-Tawheed, written by Shaykh Sulaymaan al-Shaykh. Then he says here, then who gave the commentary of this book? Means this is the original book. And from that book was summarized Fath al-Majid, Sharh Kitab At-Tawheed, and then later on we get the modern day Shuruh. So this is a big book. But he wrote there, the author says here, they pointed out the same benefit. So now we have, so he mentioned that, Ibn Uthaymeen, Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh, and many others. And that is what could be deduced from the hadith of Muslim. Whosoever may find refuge from that should take refuge in it. So Shaykh quotes the hadith alayhi salam. Hadith Abu Hurairah. Whoever may find refuge from that should take refuge in it. And also the story of a woman who sought refuge with Salama. The woman who sought refuge with Salama. The hadith is reported in by Jabir and hadith Muslim. In the chapter of the penalty for theft. So a woman, she sought refuge with Salama. And the boy who sought refuge with the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Hadith Muslim. And this applies also to the one who sought refuge with the Haram or the Kaaba and so on. And someone who's fleeing and seeking protection in the Haram, this is allowed. So you can be protected there from people getting you, whatever it may be. So those are some examples Shaykh showing that shows that you can seek refuge with the creation in that which they are capable of doing. Otherwise, Sahaba and Sahabiyat will not be doing this. And even Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it's becoming, that's further proof on top of what we already mentioned. And this is what is due contemplation suggests. If highway robbers attack me, and I seek refuge with a person who's capable of rescuing me from them, there is nothing wrong with that. However, attaching the mind to the creation is undoubtedly from shirk. So here's the part of the Baltan. If, for example, somebody is going to attack you, and you seek refuge from another human being to protect you against this person attacking you, this seeking refuge is allowed. But your heart should be still truly seeking the help of Allah and seeking refuge in Allah. For only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can truly allow that person to aid you. So the point here, the Shaykh saying, undoubtedly, if the person's heart and mind is attached to the creation, then this is shirk. So that's the part of Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh mentioned, the Zahir and the Batin. The Zahir means outwardly you're seeking refuge with something that they can capable of helping you, but internally you're still hoping and have tranquility and good thoughts from Allah that He will aid you and He will protect you. When you place your mind, trust, hope, fear, and all your affairs on a particular person, making them a recourse, then this is shirk. Since that cannot be done except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus the statement of Shaykh al-Islam that leading scholars do not permit seeking refuge with the creation should not be understood unrestrictedly. We should understand it restrictedly in that which they are not capable of doing. So if there is no textual evidence that shows so he said there's no textual evidence that shows this elaboration, we would then held this view that you are not allowed to seek refuge with other than Allah. However, as the proof comes to show that we're allowed to seek refuge with the creation, apparently in that which they are capable of helping us and aiding us in. As for that which they are not able to help you in, then you must only seek refuge in Allah. As we said, Allah says, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. And the Shaykh gets into some of the masail. We'll read some of them. Some of the benefits we take from this chapter, important matters. Number one, we learn about the verse of Surah Al-Jinn. What is intended by the verse. Allah says, وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. So now we understand a little bit what that verse means. We also benefit by learning that to do such a thing is shirk. to seek refuge in the jinn is shirk and impermissible. We also learn proving that the hadith, with that hadith, because the scholars deduce from it that the words of Allah are not created. So we learn from hadith Khawla that Allah's speech is not created, or it's not permissible to seek refuge in the creation in such a matter like this to protect you overnight or when you're staying over. So therefore it concludes that Allah's speech is not created. It's the speech of Allah, the Quran, the words of Allah, and an attribute of Allah. We also benefit that the excellence of this supplication, despite its brevity, that it's important to memorize this dua, especially if we're passing over or settling in a place. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. This dua is important, Shaykh says. Despite its short words, Shaykh al-Islam says it has great excellence and virtue. And lastly, that something brings about worldly benefits such as preventing evil or fetching goodness does not mean that it's not shirk. That something bringing about worldly benefits such as preventing evil or fetching goodness does not mean that it is not shirk. And the Shaykh al-Uthaymeen mentions some of the commentary on these different masail, and some of them we already covered in the class. As for the last point, Shaykh says, for example, a jinni may protect you. But that doesn't mean that just because they can protect you that it's not shirk to do that. It means they can protect you from some harm, but it's shirk to seek their aid, or seek refuge in them. Another example, a person may prostrate for a king, and as a result he grants him luxurious wealth and mansions. Such an act of shirk, though it contains some benefits. Likewise, the extremists, right, they mention these different types of poetry in which they go into extreme in order to gain money. So the point is, the benefit here, the Sharia does not nullify a matter of the period of ignorance, except that it mentions something better. And during the days of ignorance, they would seek refuge with the jinn, and also substitute Allah substituted this by asking or requesting that we seek refuge in His kalimat. And once you seek refuge with Allah's perfect words from the evils of what He has created. طيب, inshallah, we will end with this point. If anyone has any questions on that which you mentioned, inshallah, they can ask. We mentioned earlier that Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh, in his explanation of this chapter, in his book, an explanation of Kitab At-Tawheed, he said that we can divide isti'adha, seeking refuge with Allah, into two types. So seeking refuge, zahir, in apparent form, and in hidden form, batin. So he said when you combine both, seeking refuge in Allah, apparently and hiddenly, this is the true seeking refuge in Allah. So you turn to Allah and your heart, you turn your heart in trusting Allah, that's the true seeking refuge. However, it is permissible to seek refuge with the creation apparently. So for example, someone is harming you, you seek refuge in another human being to protect you against this person attacking you. So apparently you seek refuge in them. But internally, you must be having your trust and true belief in Allah, that Allah is the one who is going to protect you, and seek refuge in Him. So if someone does this, means apparently seeking refuge in creation, and that which they are capable of doing, but in their heart they truly are returning to Allah, then that's permissible. But if somebody is seeking refuge in the creation, and internally he's putting his trust and reliance in that creation, then that's shirk akbar. It's major shirk. So therefore the apparent and the hidden, and that's what Ibn Abdul mentioned at the end, despite the fact that we can seek refuge in creation to help us, we must always remember our heart must be still connected to Allah, and not to that creation. So that's what we mentioned in the beginning. We also mentioned that isti'adha means talab al-iyad, seeking refuge or shelter. This is what the intent meant, and then we mentioned the point. Yes.
Is it the same for if you have, let's say you're relying on someone to, let's say, hire you, and you go to them, and you have trust. You don't have trust because you're totally relying on them to hire you, and you don't have any thought of Allah. That is maybe shirk as well.
Exactly. Then that's the issue of tawakkul and isti'ana. We're going to talk about that later on. Issue of tawakkul. But we said tawakkul ala Allah, it means that you have sidq الاعتماد. صدق الاعتماد القلب. The truthful reliance of the heart على Allah, upon Allah, means that you can, for example, put your trust in the creation, believing that they're going to provide for you the job and opportunity. In reality, we trust that, for example, if they said you're going to hire us, but in our heart truly believe it, we have in our heart reliance on Allah. Allah is the one who's going to provide and allow that opportunity to become. And then you take the means to try to get the job, then this is fine. But not in your heart believe that this person has the ability, right, or has the ultimate decision of allowing me to have that job or not having that job. So the heart action, we have to have that connection with Allah. Same thing here, when we're talking about seeking refuge. Apparently we're seeking refuge in some things that people can do, but internally we know it's Allah who's the only one who permits and allows such things to occur. So that's why someone's heart should always be connected to Allah and have true trust in Him, and then take the proper means to obtain that which He's trying to obtain of the permissible means. So when you're doing this, we shouldn't put our reliance on the person that he or she will give us the job. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is a means only, and that's what we should be always remembering.
Another thing I want to ask, I find that some people will say, I seek refuge with Allah, then so on. Is that okay?
This is a point of benefit, Allah Alam. You want to mention? Perhaps we'll look into more detail in terms of that, seeking refuge in Allah, and then saying with so and so. Perhaps, inshallah, we'll look into it and give a clear answer next lesson, inshallah. Is it permissible to seek refuge in Allah, or say I seek refuge in Allah and then in so and so? So the wording. So inshallah, we'll look into it more, and next lesson we'll mention Allah Alam. Anybody else? طيب إن شاء الله. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.